Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me again is Gary Sheffield Jr. He's back. And this is Yankees Unloaded. And, in typical Yankees Unload fashion, the last, 3-4 weeks, the Yankees lost again in painful, oh, man. We're going to
Jake,
get
this
into
game was
it,
bad enough. It was poorly managed enough to bring me out of my short stint retirement. And to talk about Boone, because I know you were texting me during the game, that was horrible. It was a bad performance, not from necessarily the players, but when you have somebody in the dugout making just boneheaded mistakes, and now that mistake, Jake, just to explain it for those of you who missed it, there was a situation in the game where Austin Wells was taken out of the game in exchange to hit for Jose Trevino. And that was for a left-handed pitcher at the time. And a lot of people would say, well, I guess you can see how Austin Wells is a left-handed hitter. You probably want the right-hander up there. Jose Trevino is hitting under 200 against left-handed pitching this year. Absolute dumpster fire, waste of space, colossal fart of a situation from Aaron Boone. It's an embarrassment. Now, I will say this, Jake. We've talked about Aaron Boone, and I think we came into this year trying to be objective and consistent with Boone. Coming into the year, you could have said, why is Boone here? It's just more of the same. And you can make that argument for Brian Cashman as well. But what's so insane to me is that we tried to come in and say, let's talk about what Boone does well. Because if we don't do that, we're biased. We're just essentially projecting what we think should be done with Aaron Boone and then casting that about his entire season as if he doesn't do anything well. And we said it, Jake, the whole first 2 months of the season, Aaron Boone was doing a lot well. Okay. But having said that, I'm not going to ignore tonight. I'm not going to ignore the last month of baseball. It's been a lot of inconsistent play from the players themselves. But as far as management goes, I have hardly seen a display worse than the one I've seen these past few days. Of course, me recently becoming a dad, I've been watching these games from afar, not podcasting, but I don't miss these games. They're a hard watch. Okay. I'm tired enough as it is watching a baby. And if they think I wanted to jump out of the baby bubble and watch Boone bring in worse hitters for a better hitter, why? There's no logical explanation that anybody could possibly give me that could justify why we saw what we saw tonight. There's no possible way. And so, Jake, I'm so glad that you're my partner and we can talk this stuff out, because we're just in a situation right now with a lot of underperforming players, 5 through 9. Our 1 through 4 is okay. We're pretty good. But when you've got guys, and we'll talk later in the show about Nestor Cortez on the road, completely just a different player.
And yeah.
ERA approaching 6. I actually had to ask you before the game because I knew it was bad. I didn't think it was that bad. Okay. But we're in a situation where if you have guys who aren't performing up to standards, or half the roster, we don't necessarily have the depth, you can't afford mistakes from your manager. We're in a position right now where we've got an average roster and a below average manager for the time being. And can Boone turn it around, I guess, in the short term? Sure. But would I blame anyone for saying that this is a fireable offense? No, I wouldn't blame them at all, because that was Little League-esque. That looked like a Little League manager where you go home to your dad and say how bad your coach is, and you just talk to your dad, basically talk on his shoulder all night. That's what that looked like. That looked like Little League, Pony League, any league you grew up playing.
Well, are we sure that it wasn't the coach's son that came in to pinch hit for the best player on the team? Because that's how it felt. I mean, not saying that Austin Wells is, not to say he is, because he's not. But today of all days, 2 for 3. There's really not a lot of offense. He hit a home run to get things started. I mean, by the way, he hit a home run to get things started. Nobody was on base, so it was a solo shot because no one else was doing their job. Juan Soto was great today. But aside from those two guys, I mean, it was kind of hard to watch. Cabrera had his moments, getting on base and, threatening with his speed, which we like. But tonight, just absolutely in the 8th inning, like I told you off air, that was the game. And if you're not aware of where we were, I'm going to bring up the play-by-play, because I want this to be accurate as possible. I don't want to miss a beat. So Jason Adam came in for Tampa Bay. He's got a disgusting slider, and it was disgusting. However, after striking out Judge, Rice walked, Torres singled to left, so 2 guys were on, and then Wells is coming to the plate, and he's in the on-deck circle. They're like, oh yeah, Austin Wells is next. And then just out of nowhere, they're like, oh, actually, Trevino is, and they're trying to make an excuse. And I'm not at all throwing shade at the Yes booth, but even, they're trying to explain it. It doesn't make any sense, to your point, because they're basically like, oh, it's the lefty righty thing, whatever. Miss me with that. Miss me with that. So let me ask you this. If there's a lefty righty thing going on, and you're taking out the left-hand hitter to put in a right-handed hitter because, you know how that whole thing goes. Are you taking out Juan Soto in this moment for Jose Trevino?
They would definitely say, yeah, you wouldn't do that because the overall quality of the player, the lefty-righty matchup is just irrelevant. Okay, if you're talking about a marginal difference offensively between 2 players, yeah, you might go with the lefty or righty matchup. But Jake, today, Wells was swinging a hot bat. We've actually talked about this in terms of feel and the difference between feel and analytics. And people have gotten so frustrated with the way that this team is managed, just overhyping analytics. Sometimes
I don't know what analytics have you putting him in there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. They probably just say, well, the average hitter against a left-handed pitcher, they have more success when they're facing them, from the opposite side. That's probably what the analytics say. So they just go with it. And if Aaron Boone didn't use analytics right there and he just used his mind, that scares me. It really does scare me. And by the way, I'll say this about the Yes booth. And I have defended the Yes booth a lot. Okay. And I'm a huge fan of their booth. But you also have to remember on July 9th, I actually wanted to bring this up. And this was something that I found to be despicable. The coverage from Bob Lorenz and Jack Curry, both of them do a fantastic job. But I thought it was interesting listening to what they were saying post-game about the trade deadline and kind of how it just permeates our entire organization. And essentially what happened was that Brian Cashman said, well, we're going to be out there aggressive on the trade market. But now with the extended playoff, we might not be able to find people who are actually wanting to sell us these players. So these guys essentially are coming out on the broadcast and pumping out this version of the truth. It's nonsense, okay? It's complete nonsense. And I'll say this. Sometimes, even if you're Yes Network, you have to be able to go out there and say, yeah, that's fugazi. It's nonsense. And that's what we're seeing right now. Sometimes the Yes booth has to just say, this is an objectively terrible decision from Aaron Boone. This is an objectively terrible comment or, position from Brian Cashman. And so you need to be able to criticize these people is essentially what I'm telling you, Jake. And we're not doing that. We are not doing that. You can't possibly sit here. And it's on Yes Network's Twitter page. Everybody can go watch it. It is 4 minutes and 12 seconds from July 9th. It is posted right there of the comments from Brian Cashman. They're sitting there like there's no problem. There's no criticism. There's no nothing. We essentially just establish it as the truth and as reality. And right now, we shouldn't accept this from anybody, all parties. It's completely unacceptable. I would say this, Jake, completely healthy. Our roster's pretty good. But we came into this year saying we've got absolutely no depth. Now, a lot of that had to do with our outfield depth, but we said if Jason Dominguez is healthy when Giancarlo Stanton inevitably gets hurt, we have a replacement there. Okay? But guys have regressed. Verdugo has regressed. Stanton gets hurt. But Jason Dominguez got hurt at the exact same time. And the Yankees right now are in the midst of blaming this season on injuries. Again, they are going to do that. And it's unacceptable. You're seeing Aaron Boone get behind the mic, and he'll get behind the mic again tonight and say, this is just unacceptable play, but he'll never explain to you what's unacceptable about it. He will never take accountability. The accountability is saying that decision I made in bringing in Trevino, and people might perceive it as, well, you're going to throw players under the bus. These are grown men. These are grown men paid millions of dollars to play baseball. You come onto the field when I tell you to, you get off it when we tell you to. That's your job. You bring energy, you bring effort, you bring consistent performance. That's your only job. Okay. So if we're going to actually sit here with a straight face, Jake, and watch this level of performance from our management and putting players who really have no business on a baseball field, Jose Trevino on the 10th of July threw out his first runner since May 10th. Okay. So we're calling this an excellent defensive player. The reason that he's splitting time with Austin Wells, that's the reason we haven't seen Austin Wells at the same capacity that we think we should have seen him, was because of that player right there. Absolute nonsense. So I've had enough, Jake, of defending inadequacy, lazy work from Aaron Boone. I think he's a fantastic guy. Never want to see anyone get fired, especially good people. But this is not a good people contest. This is a management job. It is a job. Okay. And if you don't do it to the highest ability, and essentially our goals and aspirations are to win a World Series every year, we haven't done it since 2009. Aaron Boone's a huge part of the reason why we haven't won a World Series championship. So to me, it's despicable, completely indefensible. I think the Yes broadcast needs to do a better job of actually putting people on blast as to what's honestly happening with this team. I've mentioned how I think Michael Kay is probably closest to teetering that line of really diving into what needs to be talked about. But as far as what's going on with this Yankees team, pretty much there's hardly anything going right outside of Aaron Judge and Juan Soto.
And Aaron Judge is in a little slump now. So it's really just Juan Soto and Ben Rice. And,
right.
You know, the Trevino thing just really bothers me because, like I said, situationally, Aaron Judge had a horrible at bat. Okay, we'll just call it like it is. Horrible at bat. Poche or whatever his name is comes in with one out, and he walks Rice. He gives up a single to Torres, and then the next at bat, Wells gets pinch hit for. Trevino goes up 3-0 in the count and does not even move the bat off his shoulder at any point.
He forgot he was a hitter.
And my thing is, did the umpire absolutely botch this? Yes. It's awful. He called the strike high, which was completely out of the zone, and he called a strike low, which was completely low and out of the zone. But that third pitch is the one that really, or the second pitch was the one that really bothered me when he was down 3-1. Like, that's right there. You know, you have to have some sort of, so, you know, like I was saying off air, tells me the whole goal of him being up there was that he was going to try and work a walk. Wasn't trying to hit, just trying to work a walk. Wells does that better than him. Okay. So
statistically, not an opinion.
Not an opinion. Statistically, Wells has more walks than Trevino, and they play about the same amount of games. Maybe Trevino has surpassed him at this point. I could look that up. The point I'm making, though, is Wells was 2 for 3 with a home run. And Wells has also shown plate discipline. And also, if the game plan is, hey, we're trying to work a walk here, tell Wells. But why on earth are you putting in Trevino, who's not hitting well? He's hitting 125 in July. Awful. And furthermore, and this is the point that isn't being talked about enough. This is the thing that kind of, you think about the last second, you're like, nothing about this makes sense. Guess what? It's the 8th inning. If they take the lead, there's still a 9th inning to go. You want Trevino late in the game? You want him having to throw guys out? See,
he was on deck.
That was what pissed me off. That's what pissed me off, because I'm like,
the guy was on deck.
And you saw Wells' throw to third. I mean, Cabrera was in awful positioning and didn't even tag the guy. But that was a great throw to third earlier in the game. And you're getting rid of that 84 mile an hour arm strength, or, you know, around that for what he has. And you're putting in Trevino, who's not hitting better. He's not throwing better. He doesn't have a better pop time. It's just stupid. And that is still like, this is dumb. Let me make this clear too. This is still dumb if they do this at any point with Wells. Doing this in a game where Wells is already homered and he has a multi-hit game in a lineup that really just didn't do much today with runners in scoring position, I don't know what we're doing. So that was really upsetting, because at that point, think about it. Trevino strikes out. Now they make the argument Trevino can't complain or do anything like that because he is the last catcher remaining. Again, that is on Boone as well. So now there's only one catcher remaining. God forbid anything would happen. If Trevino got thrown out, they would have probably had to move Ben Rice there. Well, who's playing first? I don't know. LeMahieu's hurt. So I don't know if LeMahieu would have played. I don't know what they would have done. But the point I'm making here, though, is there's so many variables that go into a very simple decision. Keep Wells in the effing game. Are you kidding me?
With your best effort.
I mean,
your best possible, like, situationally, the best thing we could have done was have Austin Wells. Austin Wells was probably the one guy outside of Juan Soto I would have handpicked to have at the plate tonight. Okay? That's just a night-to-night basis of how things go. If a guy gets a hit in a Major League Baseball game, the chances of him getting a second hit are higher. There's more confidence. You're seeing the ball. There's all types of stuff. But there's days where you can watch Aaron Judge's first 2 at-bats of a game, and I'll be able to tell you right then and there, and you guys could probably tell me the same thing. Yeah, he's not going to be a factor in at-bats 3 and 4. You can see it. This is typical of a Major League Baseball player. Go to a game, no matter how great a player, watch his first 2 at-bats. If they're an abomination, you can expect his third at-bat to be pretty much the same. Okay? That's the way it works. But a lot of these guys, you go into the regular season or hell, even in the postseason, Jake, you watch the first series of a postseason and you say, man, that kid Corbin Carroll over there in Arizona, he really put it together. Well, what do you think? Who do you think is going to be some of the better at-bats and better player in the second series of the year in October? It's going to be Corbin Carroll. It's more likely he's already got it going. So why would you mix that up? Why would you put someone in a situation, they actually give you an output, and then you're going to say, hey, good going, kid. You're swinging a good bat today. We're going to get this guy off the bench who's done nothing today because he's been sitting next to me. It makes no sense because now you need 2 catchers to bring it offensively that day to win a game. It makes no sense, Jake. We can't possibly defend it because I don't want to. I have there's
that's your
nothing
second
in
out.
Me.
After getting 2 guys on, that's your second out, Gary. So now Volpe's up with 2 outs and 2 on. Volpe gets the bases loaded. Now Grisham comes up and he flies out to left. That scores a run. Are you kidding me? So right now, and this is where you have to, it's not galaxy brain, okay? It's not doing mental gymnastics. It's very simple,
this isn't
Gary.
hard. This is
not
like
hard.
Great management to do this.
Judge strikes out swinging. There's 1 out. Mm-hmm. Rice walks. Torres singles. Rice goes to second. Runners on first and second. If Wells comes up and whatever, he gets out, fine. But let's just say if Wells walks here, okay, bases are loaded. Volpe walked. Now it's 5-4, okay? It's 5-4, still 1 out. Grisham's fly out to left to end the inning becomes a sacrifice fly, and it's 5-5 with 2 outs. So it is absolutely a problem to take out one of the best hitters of the day to put in a guy who's hitting 125. There's just nothing excusable about that. And it's just the next inning, Cabrera walks, right, in the 9th. Verdugo hits what is basically a swinging bunt. Almost, I got to give Verdugo credit. Love the effort there. Hustling down the line, almost beat it out. He did not, though. Swinging bunt. Soto walks, so they have 2 on. Judge has an awful at-bat. And then Rice singles and scores Cabrera to make it 5-4. And then Torres pops out to second. Everyone's getting on Torres. Torres hit in the last inning. I'm not throwing this game on Torres, okay? Torres hit in the last inning. Also, how many times have we seen that type of fly ball fall on the Yankees? Okay, that is a hit most often. There had to have been there was a crazy play that had to be made. Caballero, or whatever his name was, made it.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
And yeah. I will also say there's no way that you could actually make that you already know where I'm going with this. There's no way you could make that a dropped ball, but that was so moronic That was so stupid. The way
I don't know
he
what he was
celebrated all in like one motion, it made it look like he dropped the ball. Why would
it
you
honestly
make it
looked
even?
like he was so nervous to drop it that he almost wanted to just celebrate it and hide it, which isn't probably what he was doing, but
no, but
it was just a stupid play. And there are certain players in baseball where they just don't do the sensible play.
no.
That was one of those moments. But by the way, Jake, I definitely wanted to bring up just our lineup in terms of how important management is, because it seems like a lot of people just chalk up performance to just the players and they don't put any weight on what the manager's doing. And we actually talked about it on the broadcast, on the home broadcast at Yes. They mentioned that, well, there's been such regression, with these players. What to make of it, right? With all these collapses, because Jake, about a week and a half ago, you actually brought up a stat that showed the Yankees in the first half of the year in comparison to who they are in the second half of the year, when most people would say really well coached and well managed teams, whether it be the NBA, the NFL, or Major League Baseball, those teams, they tend to play really good in the second half because there's all types of adjustments made. There's people talking in your ear. There's assistants getting behind you. And overall, the better teams in Major League Baseball and in sports in general, they get better as the season goes on. The Yankees get worse. Okay? This is a fireable offense. In my opinion, Jake, and I'm just going to come out and say it, we'll eventually transition into some of these players going into a deeper dive, but Aaron Boone should lose his job. Okay? He should lose his job. You cannot consistently get worse as the season goes on. You cannot consistently sell me a product that there are different players, different assistants, different trainers every year, year after year. And you and Brian Cashman are the one consistent the consistent pieces in the locker room that I've seen every year. Okay? I've seen you guys. The last time you weren't here, we went to an American League Championship Series. And you're going to tell me that you're part of the solution and not part of the problem? I think Aaron Boone is the problem. I really do. I think the lack of effort, frankly, that's just integrity of the game. You mean to tell me that you can't show up to the yard and play hard every day? We were just talking about Verdugo almost legging out a ground ball or swinging bunt. How often the last 3 weeks alone, while this Yankees team's losing, have we seen poor effort? Not just from one player. This is not a Verdugo issue. This is a team-wide issue.
Yeah.
Low effort, low energy. Okay? There's just not a lot of fight. And I actually brought up a point about the Houston Astros earlier this year, into which you were saying they don't look like the Houston Astros at all. And I said, well, we're going to see if they punch back. And of course, in the series finale, they did punch back. But it only gave you a snippet of who they are, right? Because as the season went on, they still struggled. They still were that team you were describing as an underperforming roster. And frankly, they had a lot of holes. But as the season progressed, the Houston Astros showed who they are. The Yankees right now are showing us who they are. And it's not the direction that you want to go. So are we getting overhyped every year, maybe in the first month or two of the season? Yeah, you can argue that we're getting overhyped with the results of what's happening before us. Maybe we're getting too overhyped with what Anthony Volpe does in April or what he does in spring training. Maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe who these players are in July and August and September, maybe those players are that. And so that's the disappointing thing. Maybe Aaron Boone is who essentially he's the leader he is in September and October. Maybe that's the results that we should expect to see rather than hoping for something better. So yeah, Jake, I'm going to get out there on a limb and say that what a lot of people have been saying, and obviously you can call them cynical, you can call them whatever you want. I've suggested, and I believe we've suggested, Aaron Boone deserves some slack. Obviously, that's not an easy job, but I think we're past that, Jake. I think we're past the point of talking about it, whether if it's a hard job or easy job. It really doesn't matter. It's a job, and he's not getting it done.
Well, the whole, not being able to beat your division rivals is kind of wearing thin on me, if I'm being honest. I mean, this is not a great Tampa Bay Rays team. They're fighting with everything they have. They've had a lot of injuries. They had the unfortunate thing with Wander Franco that completely changed the trajectory of the franchise. They gave him record-setting money, And what they've done is they've just found guys to kind of piece it together. But this is not a great lineup. I mean, Arozarena is batting 203. Okay. Lowe, it went 3 for 4 today. He's now hitting 247.
Still have more players with an ops over 700 than us, by the way.
Yeah, and that's insane. Caballero, 234. DeLuca hitting 182. The catcher Jackson hitting 62. I mean, like, it's not great, but they find ways to get things done. They had 9 hits today. The Yankees had 8 today. The difference is when push came to shove, they were able to have 3 times with runners in scoring position actually coming through. Lau, Arozarena, and then there was another that I totally am blanking on. But anyway, the point I'm making here is that, like today, Soto never came up with runners in scoring position. And the one time you had a chance with the hottest hitters in the lineup today, Soto and Wells, just based on the way today went, those were the best hitters today. Wells had a chance to come up with runners in scoring position when you went 1 for 9 today with runners in scoring position. The second best hitter in your lineup today, based on just today. And you pinch hit him for a guy hitting 125 in the month of July. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying Boone needs to be fired right this instant, but what in the hell, man? And it's not all on Boone, because I still stand here, and you saw my solo videos. I still blame Cashman a ton. This roster could have been so much better. And you know what? I won't stop there. I'm going to blame Hal, because he doesn't want to spend his little inheritance. Okay. Hal, go over. I'm not just talking about a little bit over. Go over the damn luxury tax. Are you freaking kidding me? You're rich. Get over it. Spend the money you have to spend, because the bottom line is, do you know why everyone says, oh, this is the best they can do with this payroll? Yes, because they're paying guys like Aaron Hicks and Josh Donaldson still. Okay, because they continue to make shitty moves, continue to spend all of this money on 34-year-old DJ LeMahieu. And then they have to basically say, oh, we'll DFA him. And then people wonder, like, where'd that money go? No, they're still paying.
Yeah, because you look
Aaron
at the
Hicks.
roster and you go, this isn't a $300 million team. I mean, you wouldn't possibly look at this team and think that.
Yeah, they're not paying $300 million on this roster. No. They're paying guys that are not on this roster. And, that happens when you're making bad move after bad move after bad move. But the best way to balance it out, very simple, is use your goddamn farm system. I mean, are you kidding me today? I saw more heart out of Jeter Downs today. Did you see that play? I sent you that play.
I did. Yeah. You did send me the play.
I saw more heart out of Jeter Downs than I've seen in the last 2 months out of the Yankees. That was incredible. That was like the Derek Jeter play where he flipped into the stands, except this dude, see, to be fair to Jeter Downs here, and not to take away from Derek Jeter, but he caught it and couldn't really... He caught it in play and then flew into the stands because he couldn't stop himself running. No. Right. Jeter Downs knew he was about to
stop, but that's just me.
Wait, what was that?
I think Derek Jeter could have probably stopped before the bleachers, but
that's kind of what I'm getting at.
He was a little extra there.
But he, hey, I mean, he wanted to eat some plastic seats by all means.
It was epic. He knows how to milk it.
It was epic. I won't take it away from him, but Jeter Downs dove into the netting and just basically went all out for the baseball. It was just a foul ball. He's playing third base and he makes a hell of a play and he dives right into the tarp, which, by the way, I've hit the tarp before. That hurts. That's
because it's not the same
there's no
thing
forgiveness as with it.
No, not when it's all bundled together. But let me say this about Jeter Downs and that type of effort. When you bring a player like that, right, from your minor league system and you call him up to the big leagues, you would expect the big league team to have more effort because you just brought a guy who's shown that he can bring effort to the field. But what's so amazing about this, Jake, is it doesn't translate at all. And people think, well, I want to bring a player who just has effort and it's naturally going to change what the Yankees have going on in that locker room. And it doesn't.
Well, no.
It's because the leadership is poor. You bring in someone like Jeter Downs, I promise you, Jake, in 3 months, you're going to start seeing, because you don't see it now, But Ben Rice is one of the players. I think Ben Rice's effort is the number one thing I notice about this roster. I know there's Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in it, but I try to look at the details of the team, and Ben Rice's effort doesn't go unnoticed for me. Now, having said this, watch Ben Rice the beginning of next year, okay? Watch him in July of next year and see if Ben Rice looks like this exact version of Ben Rice. See if that effort, I'm not going to say that he's going to be a low effort player, but what you'll notice is that even high output effort players will look around and say, oh, that's acceptable right there from some of our best players. Oh, that role player who's hitting 220, he's allowed to jog to first and second base, and no one expects more of him. Why would I do that? And what ends up happening is those guys like Jeter Downs and Ben Rice, they change from who they were, being high effort output players. They start reflecting upper management. And that's, in my opinion, part of the reason why I just cannot stand Aaron Boone right now. And maybe this is something that the conclusion essentially I should have come to earlier, but we're in a bad way. Aaron Boone, maybe a few days ago, he said that, I actually want to quote him. He said, we're going to be tested all the time with tough spots in the season. That was the quote. What does he mean by this is a tough spot? I personally don't understand it. If the effort was there, if the accountability was there, I wouldn't even consider this a rough spot. Well, this is exactly what it should have been.
23 of the last 23.
Yes, but again, this is a roster. We should have been able to predict this. Okay? The numbers suggest this is a habit. This is not something unprecedented from the Yankees. You showed me the numbers. The Yankees, in the first 2 months of the season, they're usually excellent.
We did think this team was different, though. And we kept saying that. Like, this is different. They have Soto. And what we're finding out is that, your team, I guess the mean.
I'll put my hand up. Wrong.
The mean, you end up, the average, if you will, you end up being more like what your manager is. And essentially, this is what Boone is. I mean, he's made playoffs. He's had some success. He's gotten the ALCS. He has not won a World Series. He has not gotten to a World Series. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how you go to the playoffs if you don't start winning games. I mean, you can't just be like, we'll win every 5. And then, every 5 losses, then we'll have a win. And then we won't actually string together any sort of winning streak. It's just not sustainable. They got off to
how many series in a row have we lost?
8.
We've lost 8 series in a row, and people think that we're going to get to October and win 4 of them in a row. Why would that happen?
Yeah, it's
give me
right now.
Not an opinion. I need some statistical data. Okay. Sorry, guys, I had a baby about 2 days ago, so I'm exhausted. Statistical data that shows me, that's a reason why the New York Yankees should think that they're going to win series in October. Jason Dominguez's return. Jason Dominguez he's going to be a really good player in this league. He's a good enough player to turn this around from just being an absolute colossal dump to all systems go. Let's go hoist number 28.
We're going to ignore the fact that, we sit here and we talk about how the rev up process and all that. We're going to ignore that and just be like, oh, Jason Dominguez will just go right in there and he'll hit 1,800 OPS. Like,
yeah. People do think that that's like we're waiting until Giancarlo comes back, to which, by the way, they've said, and you can almost agree with it because it's gotten this bad with his injury history. They're just going to skip a rehab assignment. They're going to skip it.
I agree.
I agree with it, but imagine this. Giancarlo Stanton, he's the DH, but what's so funny about it, Giancarlo Stanton could show up and hit a $165. And what's insane about it is he would still be an upgrade over everything else that we've got going on right now. And that's how pathetic the depth is on this roster. It's something that we should have been able to point out at the very beginning of the year. Some people did. Some people wanted to have a positive outlook. But a lot of that positive outlook was based on their win-loss record and what they were doing in the first month and a half of the season. We tried to look at, hey, Trent Grisham, you were asking Jake, why is he on this roster? And I told you, I said his job is to play once a week, and that's it.
Playing every day.
But he was one injury away from being the starting center fielder of the Yankees. That's not a winning formula. It'll never win.
Doesn't that tell you that whatever they're doing in the minors isn't good enough? I mean, you don't have one guy. Like, okay, I understand Pereira's hurt and Jason Dominguez is hurt. But, like, you're telling me, like, okay, if you could ask Cashman straight up, what would it take for Spencer Jones to get a call up this year? Like, what do you think his answer would be? Because I'll tell you right now, I think he might even say, we're not calling him up this year. Like, he wouldn't even give an answer. I think you just flat out say he's not being called up this year.
Well, isn't it about who we've developed so far? We haven't developed anything. Really think about this for a second. Spending money is great, okay? Making really good trades and hitting the nail on the head, it's awesome. Look at this roster, okay? Alex Verdugo, we didn't develop him. Juan Soto swung a trade at the timing, Jake, that you said was a good time to make a trade, right? Which is considered late. Now, we traded for Verdugo. We traded for Soto. We'll skip Aaron Judge because, of course, he was drafted. Ben Rice, okay? We called him up in an emergency because of an injury, okay? So he wouldn't even be here if Rizzo was healthy, which is ridiculous in itself. We've covered it. Gleyber Torres, we traded him from, got him from Chicago. People feel like we developed him.
They did.
Yeah, so people feel like we developed him, okay? Gleyber Torres, overall, he's been kind of a success, but as of now, so we've got Gleyber Torres.
Austin Wells.
Okay, Austin Wells, who we've developed. You can honestly argue there are no great players outside of Aaron Judge. Is there a great player on this roster we drafted outside of Aaron Judge?
Remains to be seen with Rice, but aside from that, I mean, because
what are the odds Ben Rice is as good? Like, what are the actual odds? I'm not saying there's no chance for Ben Rice to be a great player, but the odds of him being what, like a great player in this league, a name that people travel to go watch.
I still think and I still feel good about this, the comparison between him and Brandon Belt. I think he is a piece. I don't think he's going to be, and it's not to say he can't. I don't want to put a ceiling on him. I just think that's what he ends up being. He'll end up being a really good potential all-star first baseman, but we already talked about all-star doesn't really mean anything. Clay Holmes is going to be an all-star and didn't have a save for over a month. So
he's been putrid.
He's been bad. And by the way,
essentially my whole point is this whole roster is not drafted. That's why we spend so much money. We don't know how to use players. We don't know how to develop these players. And people will say, well, hold on a second. We developed this one guy. Guys, look at these teams that win all the time. I'm not to say that, we're just going to wait around for draft picks to turn around and figure it out. Yeah. No, it's supposed to come at the same time as you spending. When you look at teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers, do you know the reason that we look at the Dodgers and say, their lineup 1 through 5 is all-time great, but they don't really have anything 6 through 9? It's because guys like Gavin Lux haven't delivered the way that they saw it happening. Okay, James Outman, they haven't been exactly what they thought they were going to be. Now, if they were, it's a juggernaut. It's a product that you can't beat. You can't touch it. They're spending and they're developing. This team, all those teams you saw in 98, 99, the 2000 Yankees, they were developing and spending. Okay, this team's just spending money. And when you spend money, you're going to make mistakes. Some guys are going to work out. When you've got a bunch of mistakes and some guys, that are working out and then draft picks that are just mediocre as all be, you don't want to call them up unless someone gets hurt. It leads to an 89 to 93 win season. You go into October with no chance to win whatsoever. And that's seeming to be what we're looking at. We're looking at a team that, Jake, I would probably say a month ago, we thought we're going to blow away our predictions. Remember that? 93 wins. I think you had something like 95, 96.
I think I had 94.
94 wins. So we were pretty realistic. I think we both believe Baltimore would outrun us in the regular season, but we would have a real chance in October. It's hard to sell an opportunity to win with this team. There's so many guys who are just not competitive at all, whether it be with the bat, with their arm, with their glove. They're just not good enough. And, who knows if we're really an aggressive trade deadline away from contention. I don't know, right? Because I guess reports from John Heyman have been that the Yankees are involved and actually going to be calling on Jazz Chisholm. But is this Yankees team really a Jazz Chisholm and an arm away from a World Series title, I don't see that. I frankly, I don't. I think they need more from a manager. They need more in a lot of different departments than just center field and maybe second base and a closer. There's so much going on with this roster. It's a circus.
They need to stop being so afraid to use their farm system. It's insane to me. They used it once. Like, I'm talking about really used it for a bat, and you ended up with Ben Rice, who's now your cleanup hitter when you haven't had a cleanup hitter since Stanton went down. And, you know, you have Vivas, who just continues to crush it at the dish. Had another home run today, by the way. You have Jeter Downs diving into, you know, like just the wall essentially to make a crazy play. And
Ben Rice should be able to come on this team and hit 6th, by the way. He should be able to hit 7th. That should be the depth of this roster. Yeah. Guys like Ben Rice, you can absolutely justify why he's hitting 4th. I think that's actually a good decision. Okay. This is a player that we can justify hitting 4th in a big league team that's trying to win. Imagine if our roster looked the way it was supposed to look. He'd be hitting 6th or 7th. You think we'd be talking about lack of roster depth? Of course not. Ben Rice is your 7 hitter. We would be excellent, but we just don't have the talent. That we're short on talent. You can bring in Juan Soto all you want, but that's one player. You need to bring in multiple, and we're multiple players short. I don't know what there's to be excited about because we've got a lot of excuse making when it comes to Anthony Volpe as well. That's something I text you, Jake.
Yeah.
There are so many people they're essentially justifying why this is acceptable level of performance out of Anthony Volpe, whether it be that he's too young, he's 23 years old, he's not young. Okay. That's one. 2, they're saying, well, it's just his second year, so this could be expected. So essentially what they're doing is if he plays really well, he's taking the world by storm. But if he doesn't, we're going to be able to wait till he's 26, 27 before we get an output. Well, I'm going to give everybody, some information here that I feel like they absolutely would agree with. If Anthony Volpe becomes a great player by the time he's 27, that's 4 years from now, 4 extra seasons from now. Aaron Judge won't even be a shell of himself in 4 years. He's not going to be Aaron Judge. This level of what you see in 4 or 5 years, it won't be that. So you might be able to call up prospects, but if they're not going to be ready and impactful for 3, 4, 5 seasons into their careers, well, that doesn't really work with our timeline, does it? So I guess, Jake, it's always great to use your farm system, but you get punished for not using it back in the day. If you don't do it well in 2020, 2021, it makes you pay in 2024. So that's the situation we're in. And frankly, that's, like you said, that's on Brian Cashman.
Yeah, it's just not, we talked about it. I mean, it shouldn't be a 35-year-old Giancarlo Stanton goes down with an injury and, 21-year-old Jason Dominguez goes down with an injury. And now it's like, oh, we're screwed. I mean, and to be fair, the pitching, and we didn't really touch on that a ton, and we can, but I do want to kind of stick here with the Heyman report. I think that's very fascinating with Jazz Chisholm. That's somebody we brought up a lot on this show. I think Tanner Scott would also be a part of that deal. I think the Yankees are going to make that deal. I think they need somebody electric like that, somebody that, a vibrant personality. How else are they going to figure this out? They need guys that are going to be rah-rah. They need guys that are going to make it look like they're having fun out there. And I don't mean to sound like...
You don't think he'll change it all when he gets here?
Like how so?
Well, I mean, obviously Jazz Chisholm he's an in-your-face player. Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen in-your-face players. Like, it's not like the Yankees banned those guys.
Yeah.
We saw Josh Donaldson. Anytime he played well, he let you know, right?
Yeah.
It didn't happen often, barring. But I will say he was an in-your-face player, very similar to what you see out of Jazz Chisholm. So I guess my whole question is, will Jazz Chisholm be that same exuberant, exciting player that playing in Miami allows you to do, right? Because frankly, you're only going to get on TV in Miami as if you make a highlight. But if not, no one's paying to see the Miami Marlins play baseball. It's just what it is. But for the Yankees, we're criticizing, we're going to analyze everything you do. And I don't want a player like that to come into the Yankees system and change the way he does things, because some of what Jazz Chisholm does well, the Yankees need. They need energy.
He wouldn't change a thing, Gary. He wouldn't change a thing. Not. He's one of those guys, he's going to be him. And you're getting him knowing he's going to be him. He's no different than going out and getting, Stroman, Donaldson. That
I
is
agree
the
with that.
point of going out and getting him. And then you have Tanner Scott, who can be your closer, your setup man. And now all of a sudden, I mean, we didn't really talk about this either, but I mean, Jake Cousins has been phenomenal as of late. This has been the guy that you and I made that long video for back in the day. Oh man, the OG video. But Jake Cousins, 3 strikeouts today, struck out the side. I mean, he did give up a hit, no big deal. Tonkin, 3 strikeouts. It's weird. Cashman's actually made some decent moves, but pretty much all of them have been so minor that they're never talked about, like Cousins and Tonkin. He doesn't do enough of it, though. And right now, the Yankees need a move like Jazz Chisholm, Jonathan India. And I hate to break it to you, but the people that want Jonathan India, and I really thought about this because the last episode that I did solo, I was like, yeah, India would be a nice fit. He'd be a great leadoff hitter. Well, the Yankees made that impossible because now Cincinnati is starting to get back to where they were. Hunter Green had 10 strikeouts today, looked really good, only gave up 2 hits. I understand they were playing the Rockies, but the Reds, they're close enough to that 500 mark that they might just say, screw it. Let's just see what we can do. They might even trade for somebody. They might even be buyers at the deadline. That's just the way it is. I mean, they have Candelario and Steer. I mean, why trade Jonathan India? I mean, he had 3 hits today. He was 3 for 4.
I'll say that India is not the only solution out there. We're looking for league average. Okay. When you're bringing in these guys, we literally just described the 5 through 9 in our roster. They're not league average offensively. It's a lot of below average production. And if you can bring the other guys closer to average, this team objectively just has more chance to win. But if you're wasting at bats trying to figure out, oh, let's take Wells off the roster, or let's take him out, out from the plate and put in Trevino, that's your best option to put him off the bench. The Yankees have no bench. Okay. That's something Michael K brought up. That's not my idea. We have no bench.
No.
What $300 million team has no bench? By definition, you should have a bench. You should be spending so much money that you have someone that's average to play.
Well,
somebody.
They didn't believe in Pereira.
For an average player might be enough.
They didn't believe in Pereira. They sent him down. They didn't believe in Peraza. They sent him down. Maybe they did have a bench. Maybe these guys were the opportunity. They were the option. And they just were like, you know what? Jahmai Jones. You know what? Trent Grisham. Maybe it is them self-sabotaging. Who knows? I don't know. I'll say this, though. We talked about it. IKF should have been back in pinstripes. Gio Urshela, who was available, is somebody that they should have kicked the tires on. I'm not a big fan of going out and getting 30-plus-year-old guys, but the reality is Gio Urshela right now is hitting 324 in the month of July. He could actually help this team out. And, I mean, he plays a good third base. So, I mean, a guy that has had experience in New York, a guy
well-liked in New York.
Is well-liked. I mean, very big fan favorite. I don't know why we were kind of sitting there. He's a free agent. How have they not gone? And then they traded for John Birdie. And even still, I thought they needed another guy. But look, John Birdie will be back. Okay. Stanton will be back. And maybe Jason Dominguez will be back. I don't know. But we can't just assume that when they come back, everything is just going to be all right and everything's going to be fixed. Same thing is we can't assume that just by going out and making a trade for Jazz Chisholm or Jonathan India, everything will be fixed either. However, you have to do something. You can't sit here and lose 8 straight series and not do anything. And I'm not just saying...
You say that trade gets done, that Jazz Chisholm trade.
Absolutely. I'd be shocked.
Okay.
I'd be shocked. Because I think Cashman knows. Cashman knows he is on the hot seat. Okay? We let you go out and get...
do you think Cashman believes that?
Absolutely.
I don't.
About it.
I think Brian Cashman is just an unfireable asset for the New York Yankees. I can't possibly see that there's been enough that Brian Cashman's done over the years. He's been the general manager of this team since 1998?
Yeah.
1998.
It's much different when you go and you make a big move like the one he made for Juan Soto.
Right.
You have to have the whole organization sign off on that. You can't make a move like that. That's not something like, yeah, we'll just let the GM handle it. Like, no. You have to go to Hal and be like, this is exactly my plan. And there needs to be a concrete plan before you make a trade like that. So the plan was to win a World Series. They didn't trade for Juan Soto just to sign him next year. They hope to sign him next year, but they didn't trade for him ahead of free agency when they know that they could have been one of the suitors in free agency. They traded for him to get him now at a low opportunity cost. So you could skip a year, get him. This was the best time to trade for him. I agreed with this. The problem is, if you go out there after being 82 and 82 last year, whatever they were, 81 and 81, if you go out there and you miss the playoffs again, yes, Cashman, you absolutely should be fired. I didn't even agree with bringing you back in the first place. But I will say that, starting off as strong as they did, Cashman looked pretty comfortable, I would say, right? They started off, they were, almost 25 games above 500. Well, now you look and they're 17 games above 500. Okay. And
yeah, we always start off well. I guess the problem is if you build a roster that's always, you can argue that the Yankees build a roster and acquire players in large part because they're risks. I mean, really think about that. Carlos Rodon was no sure thing. We knew that when he came here. Some people liked the pickup, some people didn't.
It is Carlos kind of an annoying shtick.
Yeah, but he was never a sure thing. No one ever thought Carlos Rodon in any year of his entire career, yeah, this guy is like the next Verlander. Pencil him in for 220 innings in being a runner-up or a winner of the Cy Young. He was never a player of that magnitude, ever. Never. Okay, so the Yankees acquire some of these guys, and they'll spend money on players that don't have the pedigree to the contract that they're giving out. Then you look down the road, you say, okay, well, the Yankees, there's a great player right there for the taking. For example, Bryce Harper, which was just a few years ago, right? 2017, I believe.
Yeah, well, he didn't want to play him at first.
He didn't want to play him at first, but another reason he didn't want to bring him in is
Stupid.
because he was wasting money on other players who weren't contributors. So the Yankees didn't tee themselves up in a situation to be able to go spend money on Bryce Harper.
Stupid Aaron Hicks deal.
Aaron Hicks gave him $70 million to be exact. $70 million to come play. And we gave him that money because we said, well, he's an above average player. He walks a lot. They were all bought into analytics, walking, not striking out, putting the ball in play, playing good defense, hitting 250. Okay. That's what they did. They did the same thing with Brett Gardner. It's not going to win you a World Series championship. It's going to raise the median. It's going to allow you to be consistently fine in the regular season.
I agree with that. I'd push back on Gardner later on in his career. I give you, but you win World Series with guys like Brett Gardner. If they had more guys like Brett Gardner that were willing to sprint down first base, no matter what the hit was, then they would probably be in better shape.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument. Definitely.
He was honestly like having like another captain. He had like kind of that Derek Jeter fire in him. And I feel like having that on a team, he was part of that championship team, and I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I like Brett Gardner.
Yeah, that's the thing that they lack, Gary. I mean, I love Judge. Does Judge have that fire? Judge hits home runs. Judge is a superstar. Judge is the best player in baseball. But does Judge have?
I think he's like Derek Jeter socially. That, in my opinion.
Yeah, but
because Derek Jeter wasn't the leader of the Yankees at all. So I know a lot of people think that because we call him number 2, he's the captain. He wasn't leading. He wasn't leading at all. Okay, and obviously my dad was on the team, and so I know what was happening in these locker rooms. Because frankly, I was also there in these locker rooms. He wasn't the social heartbeat.
So
of these teams.
Who was, by the way?
Who was the leader? Well, I mean, at the time, there was none. It was essentially, like, you really think of it this way. The owner was the leader. There you have it.
Yeah. So maybe that's a Yankee organizational thing. And maybe it just doesn't work anymore because George isn't around and Hal has a personality question
and there
mark.
Were people underneath. There were people underneath Steinbrenner who really were the key cogs to building that team organizationally, building the core 4. A lot of people don't understand how the core 4 came to be. Now, of course, you can say, well, George Steinbrenner, if he did it all his way, he would have just traded away some of these guys. That may be true. He would have traded them away.
He tried to trade away Rivera and Jeter.
Right. But having said this, you can't tell me that, the reason that the New York Yankees were winning World Series championships is because of the leadership of Derek Jeter. No. Derek Jeter was a high-performing player that never got in trouble, always said the right thing, but where was the leadership in 2004? Where was the leadership in 2005 when Alex Rodriguez was having so many issues with the media and everyone was asking him, should he be playing shortstop? Should he not? Derek Jeter didn't come out and speak for him then, did he? Right? All the hoopla going on in those locker rooms, Derek Jeter was nowhere to be found. Now, this is somebody who I defend a lot. Derek Jeter is one of the best players to ever play the game. But when we sit here and talk about leadership, a lot of times in rough times, when the boat gets rocky, your captain needs to look around and be like, okay, I need to say something. If I see a guy go down the first base line and it's not good enough, I'm walking Aaron Boone and say, take him out of the game. It's that simple. Take him out of the game. And we can't look around Major League
describing,
Baseball.
Right?
Who?
The Warrior. You're describing Paul O'Neill. This team needs a Paul O'Neill.
Okay. There you go.
I mean,
what are we talking about as far as leadership?
Yeah.
Who is it? I mean, I thought personally,
are there any
Soto
in baseball right now? Because I love Juan Soto, and Juan Soto, I think, is a lead by example guy. He can get a little loud and all. He's not going to go into somebody's face and start. Honestly, do you know who it is? It's Stroman. That's the closest thing you have. And that was the guy that everyone was going crazy and ape shit on for calling out Gleyber Torres. And look, he was wrong. Gleyber couldn't have thrown that any harder. Okay.
It was a good throw.
But him doing that led to everybody, everyone was leveled up a little bit. Everyone was alert or like, oh crap, like he's yelling. And, the blood pressure was high and everything. And the rest of the team kind of fed off that. It's literally just a fourth pitcher in a rotation, Marcus Stroman. And is that baseball nowadays? I mean, do you see Mookie Betts and Ohtani doing that? I mean, I think it just kind of... No, I think it's just the game, to be honest with you. But I think in times like this, you need a guy like Paul O'Neill to be like, are you effing kidding me? Run that shit out, or whatever. And I'm just, I'm kind of over the whole, and I've said this word so many times on the show, entitlement. I mean, it's not even just entitlement. It's like taking for granted. It's comfortability. When you know that no matter what you do, you're not getting sent down. Grisham's not getting sent down. Grisham's not losing his job. Grisham doesn't care.
Is Volpe getting sent down?
I don't think Volpe's getting sent down.
Because he's terrible right now. He's horrible.
I mean, it's not great. So I think you have to make a move. I think Jazz Chisholm is the move with Tanner Scott. Scott helps strategically. Jazz Chisholm, you're not just trading for the player, you're trading for the person. You're trading for what he's going to bring on the field, in the clubhouse. He is an electric personality. Okay. So I think they need that right now. But you're not just trading for a nice guy or whatever. You're trading for somebody that could be a difference maker. I mean, Chisholm is a good baseball player with the potential to be great. And I think he'd be better in the Bronx, to be honest. I think he was made for the Bronx. I think he's very similar to Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie De La Cruz could absolutely thrive in the Bronx. No doubt about it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It would. And he already said he kind of wants to.
Yankees fan.
So,
yeah.
So, look, right now, to me, Chisholm has not been great this month. I think it's about time he gets out of Miami. Okay. He's going to be 27 in February. He's got 12 bombs this year. Say what you will. Volpe doesn't have that. Gleyber doesn't have that. He's got 42 RBIs. And the Yankees, by the way, as part of that Heyman, that update, very interesting. They're looking at him as an infielder. Currently, he's been a DH and an outfielder, mainly center fielder, to lead off. He would be their leadoff hitter.
Torres.
Okay, he'd be their leadoff hitter. He'd be playing second base. You could call up Vivas and play him at third. And now, all of a sudden, just by making two moves, one of which you didn't have to give up anything because Vivas is already in the minor leagues. Leadoff hitter, you have Chisholm. You have Soto in the second spot, Judge at 3, Rice at 4. Okay. Now you have Wells. Maybe Volpe can come on. If he can't, maybe you call up Jeter Downs.
Birdie's backing up at third base. Yep.
You got Vivas. And, at some point or another, because you could also do this, say, you know what? We like John Birdie at third. We'll move Vivas to second, and we'll put Chisholm in center field for the time being. Chisholm gives you that depth and that flexibility now where he could play third, second, could probably play a little short, and can play center field, left field, and maybe not right field, but left field and center field. So this is somebody that gives you about 4 to 5 positions, can hit 260, can get on base, can steal bases, has some pop. Chisholm is going to hit over 20 home runs this year. That's not bad. Yeah. That's not bad for just a speedster, which everyone seems to think that.
Yeah, and then we can pinch it and take him out the game and put Trevino in.
Oh, Jesus.
Perfect matchup. Matchup made in heaven.
That just melted me, and not in a good way.
It's a sad reality that we're living in. It's really ugly.
Yeah.
I love just defensively, I love that fit with Chisholm. Chisholm's not the best player in the world. He has not lived up to expectations at all.
No.
Okay.
No, he's not.
There's something there. Okay. I'm not giving up on him yet. I think there's something there. And then being in New York, he doesn't even have to go to the Yankees. He can go to Philadelphia, right? There's a lot of different spots where it's like he's going to be, the eyes are going to be on him for the first time ever, frankly.
Yeah. No one's watching Miami Marlins baseball.
Oh, you don't think people want to watch a team that loses 115 games a year?
No one's watching that.
Yeah, you're right. They don't want to watch that.
You know what's funny? I think I already said this on the show, so spoiler alert. But I brought up how they needed they needed the Warrior. Dude, I understand he was older, but when he was on Cincinnati, small market team, Paul O'Neill was not what he became with the Yankees at all.
Right.
Okay. So to assume that a guy is what he is, we've seen so many guys come to the Yankees. Like, how many guys had they acquired who were hitting 300? I mean, we saw Benintendi come here and could not play here. He couldn't.
Yeah.
And we've seen guys come to the Yankees like Gio Urshela who come out of nowhere and they're hitting over 300. You're like, oh, crap, he can play here. We've seen guys like IKF who hit 260 and people complain. Well, right now, instead of him, you have a guy who's hitting 224. Okay. So look, there are guys all over the MLB that can play in the Bronx that we'll never find out whether or not they can, and that can't. Okay. We know Zach Greinke can't because he admitted to everybody he can't. It's why he would never accept a trade there. There are guys out there that simply will not be able to handle the Bronx. I'm willing to put money down that Jazz Chisholm is one of those guys that can. And not only that, Gary, I think he can feed off it, and I think he could become a better player because of it. And I think
so similar to Juan Soto.
I think it's different because Juan Soto is fantastic, right? I don't think Juan Soto ever really fell off. Like Chisholm is a guy that you and I came into this year kind of always like, how do you end up on the cover of MLB The Show? No offense to the guy, right? Good for him.
But yeah, he shouldn't have been on the cover of the game.
Why that? Insane. Like, and I had people who were like, friends of mine who just love baseball and like kind of fell out of it and was like, I haven't been following it that long. Who's that guy on the cover of MLB The Show? It's like, oh, it's Jazz Chisholm. They look him up. They're like, with these numbers? Really?
Yeah, he's hit his career 240 hitter.
Yeah. So I think really what I would look at it as is that Chisholm, not just, mentally, I think he'd be perfect and all that, but I think also putting him in the lineup with Soto batting after him, Judge batting after him, and the way Rice is batting, then you have, of course, Stanton when he comes back. There's so much protection there for Chisholm that he just doesn't have right now in Miami. And we can't kid ourselves. Miami's not a good baseball team. They're not at all entertainment, which is what this whole thing is, right? It's the entertainment industry. I mean, you're not playing baseball games for your health.
You're not wrong.
You're playing, well, I guess for some people, but baseball games are played to entertain audience that pay to watch them, whether it's, via cable or you're at the game. And Miami is not at all entertaining. But you know who is entertaining? Jazz Chisholm. And
yes,
business-wise, I wouldn't let that guy go. He has 2 years left of control. So the Yankees still have, some time to decide, do we want to keep this guy? Is he going to be a building block in the future? Who knows? But the reality is they need to make a move, because if they don't, then they have to look at the other side and be like, you know what? We have to kind of blow this team up. And I don't think we're going to have that discussion at all because I think the trade deadline comes before there's any chance of them being below 500. But you never know. And I'll say, finally, I'll say this. With Soto, you have to give him a reason to want to stay. We make fun. We sit here. Well, not really you. You're way more respectful than me. But I make fun of the Mets all the time. Okay? All the time.
Yeah.
Because I can't even comprehend how Soto would pick the Mets over the Yankees. And right now, the Mets are starting to win. You know? They got off to
they look comparable to us right now, which is just pathetic in itself.
Well,
They're hovering around 500 and it feels good. Like Lindor, all that. Playing for the Mets right now doesn't look that awful in comparison to playing for the Yankees.
That's my point.
And that
you have to give him a reason. No, you have to give him a reason to be like, yeah, this is the holy grail. I'm not leaving here. And if the Yankees are not even going to make the playoffs, if they lose, guess what? Well, I did that with the the Padres last year.
Yeah.
Like, why? Maybe I'll just go back there.
Better weather and better, right?
Maybe I'll call up the Dodgers and be like, hey, you got any room? I'd like to play with Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, and I want to win a ring. I don't care what I do. It has nothing to do with my legacy. I just want to win a ring. I don't care who likes how I get it done. We don't know. So the Yankees' best chance, because they made the decision to go out and trade for Juan Soto, put them ahead in any race to sign him because this is where he's spending his whole 2024 season. But it can also hurt them because if they go from what they are right now, 56 or 57 and 38, if they go from that to not making the playoffs, I think it's a clean slate. I think the Yankees have a shot, but I'll be honest, if they don't make the playoffs, I'm very, very skeptical Juan Soto is back with the Yankees. And it's not that Juan Soto wouldn't want to come back. It's that I just don't think it would be something that was sold to him that wasn't quite what he expected.
There's nothing to take a discount for, that's for sure.
Well,
if this Yankees team
wins
if this team wins 87 games, this is the playoffs, right? Just we're going to project that. If that happened, you mean to tell me that you're going to say, hey, this is the pinstripes. You want to be a Yankee and be a legend? I would tell him kick rock. Who cares?
Yeah.
Be a legend?
Well,
how am I going to be a legend? What legend was there that won 87 games a year? None.
Well, and let's go back to the Lakers, right? So the Lakers, after Kobe, they kept, or even, with Kobe, I would say, they kept doing the whole, don't you want to come here and be, like LaMarcus
Hollywood.
Aldridge of all people. LaMarcus Aldridge of the world would be like, no, thanks. I'm gonna sign elsewhere. I'm gonna go to Portland. I'd rather stay in Portland. I'm gonna go somewhere else. Dwight Howard, right? Like the whole, oh, well, we have, this great tradition. That only goes so far. I mean,
LeBron was a free agent. LeBron was the best free agent in the history of the world. There's never been a better free agent in the history of any sport. And the Lakers weren't even on the list.
No, initially, no. He just went right to Miami.
He went straight to Miami. It was essentially the Knicks. The New York Knicks were like, don't you want to come play at MSG? And everyone was like, I don't care about that. I'll see you on the road. I'll play against you guys because playing at MSG is cool. But is it worth signing up for a 5-year contract for the rest of my, for my prime? No, it's not worth it. So right now the Yankees have to build a product that you can sell to these free agents, specifically Juan Soto. You can sell to players in 5, 6, 7 years like a Paul Skeens. If you really think that Japanese free agents are going to be they're all the way from Japan and they're going to be like, I really want to go be a Yankee, or Paul Skeens is, I really want to go be a Yankee. They're just talking about 1998 baseball.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with what you're building right now. You need to build a winning product right now. And once you've done that, then you can go turn around and say, don't you want to be a Yankee and be a legend? There are no legends that don't win. So let's go figure that out first and give these players a reason to want to come play here. Because I agree with you completely about that Lakers comparison. Being a Laker doesn't mean anything if the team's not going to be good.
No,
okay?
And we saw it.
We saw
this offseason. I mean, Klay Thompson chose to go to Dallas.
They thought they're getting Klay Thompson, right? They were LeBron James will take a mid-level. He'll take a discount if we can get one of these three players, a James Harden. If we can get one of those players, and all three of them said no, thank you, because you're 40. Anthony Davis is injury prone, and I don't want to play there. The situation's not right for me. So they
the
went
ownership,
to,
which is another
and
thing.
the ownership,
which is
right?
another
so the Yankees
thing.
have to get it together.
That's another thing. I mean, not to go all in on Hal, but because they got Judge done. Okay, they got Garrett Cole. That's great, but they have nothing to really show for those guys. They have a Cy Young Award winner in Garrett Cole. They have an AL MVP in Aaron Judge. Juan Soto could win MVP in any other year. I mean, they now will be going up against the Baltimore Orioles the next 3 games, and it's not going to be pretty. Okay. It's not. This is the second to last meeting with them. They can't win the tiebreaker. Actually, fun fact, the Yankees can still win the tiebreaker on the year. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
They still can. Do you know how?
Winning the rest of the games of the year?
They have to win every game at least except for one, I believe. Because
how many games left are there?
Okay, so they would have to win every game except for one. They have 6 games left. They have to go 5-1 the rest of the year to have that tiebreaker. Which, by the way, they need to sweep the Orioles if they want to win this division, in my opinion. They haven't been able to get things done. When the Orioles lose, they lose too. So they need to go out there. They need to sweep the Orioles. I know that's hard to do, but you need to go to Camden Yards and make them your bitch, essentially. And you need to go out there and you need to sweep them. You need to make a statement. There needs to be something other than, hey, we're going to win this game and then we're going to lose 5 in a row and then we're going to win another game and then we're going to lose 5 in a row. Doesn't work that way. You need to make a statement.
8 series in a row. Jake, we've lost 8 series in a row, and we're supposed to go in and sweep Baltimore. I know you didn't predict it to happen, but
no.
How can I possibly, with good conscience, tell our audience, hey, this is what needs to happen? I mean, technically that's true, but Oakland and all those teams that come to Yankee Stadium, they're thinking the same thing. Hey, let's go beat them today, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're just talking at that point.
There's
no reason.
Yeah, Garrett Cole needs to get this win. He needs to look really good doing it.
He does, yes.
Cade Povich, they better destroy him. He's a 6.51 ERA. He's pitched 27 innings, given up 28 hits, 18 strikeouts, 13 walks, 6 home runs. He's 1-3 on the year. They need to have a home run derby off Cade Povich. They need something. Something different has to happen because this isn't working. And the good news is Judge has been in a little slide. Okay. The worst slide he's been in since, I think, April, I saw. So if he were to magically awaken, because we all know he has a slide and then he goes on a tear again. If he goes on that tear in this series, I think the Yankees win the series. I'm not going to say they sweep him, but I think if we get that Judge who comes out of it, he's going 3 for 5, 4 RBIs, whatever. I think they win the series. But if Judge stays in that slide, this offense is anemic outside of Juan Soto and whoever on the specific day wants to hit the baseball. And that's just the reality of it. So instead of waiting to the trade deadline, I would advocate to get Jazz Chisholm right now so he's ready to play at 7:05 tomorrow night. Like, that's what I would try to be doing. I
want them to wait for us to make another video of them. That's pretty much all it is. We're going to have to make a full video for Jazz Chisholm alone in that whole fit because it is a good fit.
Yeah.
The Yankees need energy. They need defensive versatility. They need athleticism. They don't have much of it. You brought up IKF earlier. Part of that is not that we think IKF's a great player. We don't. We really don't. We think that he's a great player for what the Yankees need. That's it. That's all we're saying.
I'm still so mad they let him go. Not only that, they let him go to Toronto. It's like...
Well, they offered more to Rosario, and he still said no. And that was more about role. So think about that. Rosario, another
I was
really
thinking
good
about that. 303 this year, by the way. He's hitting.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. I went back to I forget what episode it was. Obviously, we've done over 80 now. It was probably like in the first 40. And we talked about that for quite a bit because that came out like, yeah, Rosario was offered more to go to the Yankees than he actually wanted to, but he liked the role more with Toronto or Tampa.
Right.
And now you look at it and you're like, What would you do to have Rosario over Torres today? I mean, he'd be the perfect fit. He'd be leading off. Ugh.
He's just another option that we didn't have because, frankly, I mean, the Yankees at that time, like I told you before, you make bad decisions financially, they come back to haunt you. DJ LeMahieu was their option at third base. It's something they committed to. So they might have offered money to a player, but you know what they didn't offer? When Rosario's agents talked to the Yankees, they said, "So what exactly do you see for me?" They said, "Well, you might play a little bit of center field. You might go to third base. We don't necessarily want to slot you in anywhere. You think Rosario wants to be part of that circus act?" You know what he knows? He knows he's going to play 129 games because you sat him down for DJ LeMahieu. You sat him down because you wanted to get Grisham a look.
He's not stupid. And if he saw it, then plenty of the other guys are seeing it around the league. They see how the Yankees operate. I mean, teams have caught on to the Yankees. I mean, after that Red Sox series, they have barely won anything. So, I mean, have they been exposed? I'm not saying it's like football where you figure out someone's scheme and baseball is different, but to a degree, a game plan you can figure out, and the Yankees are kind of predictable. I mean, if Juan Soto and Aaron Judge don't hit home runs or don't get on base or don't generate good at bats, I mean, they lose. Pretty much 99% of the time, if either of those two guys don't do anything, they lose. If this pitching staff gives up 5 runs, they pretty much lose. However, if the Yankees score 5 runs without allowing, a big offensive barrage, most of the time they win. They just haven't been able to score 5 runs in a game. Their offense has been anemic. So, yeah.
We don't win many 8-6 games. Have you ever recognized that?
They don't win many 8-6.
Never happens.
Gary, I was praying they weren't going to go to extras because, first off, it would have taken way too long for us to record. Second, sure. Yes, I was thinking about that. Second, they would have lost. You know how I know? Because they just don't win in extra innings, which, by the way, that's also management. That's a big deal. So to your earlier point, but yeah, wrapping this up, Jazz Chisholm Jr., make him a Yankee for the love of all that is holy, and call up Vivas. He deserves it. He absolutely deserves to be called up right now. If not him, Downs. If not him, do something, because right now
it's Vivas.
This is just bad. This is just not acceptable. They should win games like this. Tampa should not be stealing. These are games where you're like, oh, awesome, we got Tampa on the schedule. And now the Yankees are like, awesome, it's the AL East, so I know we're going to lose another series. I mean, to not win this series before the Orioles series is just awful. So, luckily for them, right around the corner is the All-Star break. They need it more than anybody. The draft is Sunday, so we will give our thoughts on the first round pick. I mean, I guess we could try and talk about the other picks as well, but not all of them. But I mean, maybe, some other rounds. But I could tell you I could tell you how I feel about the first round. You watched that, so you kind of have an idea of where I am on that. That one dude, Brody Brecht, I don't think I made enough of a big deal about him because I think he could be disgusting. I really do with Matt Blake, who, by the way, got tossed tonight because he was the only one that showed any sort of backbone in the final seconds of the game. So, look, that's it. Appreciate you guys. Gary, so glad you're back. A lot of fun, obviously, talking shop. But yeah, this game really pissed me off. I still am not over Austin Wells getting pinch hit. I remember the second that happened, I had the same look on my face as I had when Trey Burke hit that shot against Kansas to complete a comeback they were down 14 with 3 minutes to go in the tournament, and Michigan won that game. That same face came back. And we're talking about regular season baseball. We're not talking about March Madness. Same face. That's how distraught I was. I could not believe in my life that they were going to pinch hit a guy who was 2 for 3 on the day with the home run when they couldn't hit with runners in scoring position, and he was coming up with some actual pop in that game.
Yeah, you can't believe it. I bet you a lot of people in our comment section can believe it.
Oh yeah,
I bet you anything. I do know exactly
you know
what you're saying.
everyone says they can't believe something, but they absolutely can. That's just kind of
You
like
absolutely can.
it's par for the course now. It's just I can't believe they did this, but I absolutely can believe they did it because it's
right.
Boone.
Which is like, can you believe MCU went down the drain? After so and so dies. Yeah, I can.
Like
I absolutely. Yeah. I can actually see how that happened. The Yankees right now are predictably stupid.
Can you believe how bad the accolade is? Yes, I
Yeah.
can believe it.
I could have told you that before production went underway. Yes.
I actually thought it'd be good, but I watched 2 episodes and I was like slowly decaying inside. So I was like, you know what?
Aaron Boone's actually managing that project, I was told.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah.
Good
Brian
Lord.
Cashman, he's the general manager of that Star Wars series that's to be canceled soon.
Well, that's why we're getting Deadpool 3 with Wolverine. So everything will all work out in the end. We get something good. So I guess in conclusion, you know me with my analogies, there's always a Deadpool 3 down the line. And I think the Deadpool 3 that's coming up to help give us some joy about watching Yankees baseball again is Jazz Chisholm. That's all I got.
Okay. I like it. You're making the prediction that Jazz Chisholm and Scott will become a Yankee. I think that's a huge pickup for the Yankees. Last thing I'll say. But I don't know if many people are going to see that because NCAA football is coming out pretty soon. I think everyone's going to be playing that, especially our demographic, because we pay attention to not just how many people watch our show, but who watches our show, what age group, male, female, all that. Our demographic, I'm expecting a lot of NCAA football players in there in the comment section. So
the Kansas thing is cut off here, but I'm going to be rolling with my Jayhawks for sure.
So it's going to be a given. You're going to be doing some dynasty with the Jayhawks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll be streaming that.
I respect that.
I'll be streaming that for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Hey, we have a fun quarterback for the first time in forever, but that is not what you guys are here to watch, obviously. We're well aware. It is Yankees Unloaded, not Jayhawks Unloaded, not NCAA Football Unloaded, not Deadpool Unloaded, not...
Deadpool Unloaded might be better than... It's Aaron Boone Unloaded. That's what we're at right now. I bet you anything, because there are a lot of people who watch, the first 5 minutes of a show and then they dip out. I bet you anything, a lot of those stragglers in the comment section will be like, oh, no, Aaron Boone, I've known he was terrible. And to rightfully so, right? There are a lot of people, sometimes people can just see it right away, and I think that's fair. He's been bad. There's no justification for it. It's been horrible.
I've been very defensive of him, but also really critical of him at the same time, which, to be fair, I do this with Sean McVay, who I love to death. I think just that it comes with the territory. You're never going to be fully in on a manager or a head coach. I mean, Sean McVay will abandon the run when the run is averaging 6 yards a game or 6 yards per carry. Okay. And a manager, I mean, they could be doing, like we saw, Boone for 2 months was great. And then we saw things start, shit hit the fan. And now he's doing stupid pinch hitting, taking guys out of the lineup for guys batting 125 on the month, shit like that. And it's frustrating. So I say that because like Darvin Ham, also being a Laker fan, like initially I liked him. Like I'm not one of those people that wants to sit here and say, no, I told you guys Boone was terrible from the start. No, I actually wanted to give Boone a shot. I didn't agree with when they fired Girardi, but I wanted to give Boone a shot. With that said, Boone was way more analytically driven early on in his career. He's not as much anymore. That's why they got rid of Brandon Lawson, who was another one of those, like the hitting coach. He was very analytically driven, right? However, there's still analytics in that, no doubt about it. We talk about it all the time. And regardless, Boone is a third generation baseball player. Okay. Third generation. So the reality is you expect better decision-making in the moment. I mean, when you're a third generation baseball player, baseball mind, you expect more. You expect guys that pedigree you always bring up.
You'd think so. Yeah, you would definitely think that there would be that pedigree. And as of now, it reeks of just a lack of feel. The Yankees have a lack of feel. I don't care about analytics. You could throw that analytics are a tool to help you, but no one can sit here with a straight face and tell me that they're managing this team with their mind, right? As an ex-player, and you threw an objectively worse hitter into a situation and expected anything other than failure, and it failed miserably. And it cost us the game, in my opinion, tonight. It's unfortunate. But when you're in a situation where you have to run down Baltimore and then you have a manager who throws games away or gives you the opportunity to throw a game away like that, it doesn't usually end in a championship the way that we're saying that we need to do.
Nope, it does not. That's going to do it. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, especially if you're still here. That's pretty crazy. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media at JK Bogan, at Gary Sheffield Jr., and at Yankees Unloaded. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, folks.
Like this video.